episode 5. So it's been a few weeks for my previous upload, number 4, which was all about the books that really helped me during the last 10 years, I'd say. This video, there's been a slight gap between the previous one and this video. And that's why the reason for that is it's been a fairly tumultuous few weeks, not in a negative sense, but there's been a big decision on my side that's been made, and I've been working how to implement that and what that means for my life, really. So it's a big decision's been made. It's final, but I wanted to share that in this video. I thought no better topic than this, and it's probably the most significant update since the start of this documentary. Not in a overly emotional way or a dramatic way, but certainly something that I will hopefully look back, look back fondly on. And as I've mentioned very early on in this process, throughout every video, I am at the very beginning of my personal journey, and we're talking, not a long time at all. And I know it's been, obviously I'm documenting it, and that's what the whole reason I started documenting this was to get this process, was to get the documentary at such an early stage of the process, so years from now I could look back at where it all started, and also look back at episodes like this and understand maybe key moments that were taken. But if I don't film these moments, I won't be able to look back and say, oh, that changed there, or this changed there. So really it's so I can look back, and that's why I've started documenting this at such an early stage. And hopefully this will become one of those moments, which we'll get onto shortly in the episode, but hopefully this will become one of those moments where I look back on really fondly, and I look back and think, what a great decision that was. Not as some dramatic turning point or some overly emotional moment, but certainly a decision that turned out to be the right one. And the decision is, which will be the subject of this video, the decision I took is that I quit my job. So I'm going completely in on the business now for at least 1 year. That's the decision I made. So I haven't, and I don't want this to seem like a dramatic, burn the bridges type moment. Sorry, burn the ships, not the bridges. Don't know where bridges came from. Burn the ships type moment, where it's overly dramatic or dramatized to any extent. I think the decision is really so I can focus entirely on building my business for at least 1 year, and then we'll see where we are. I'll come on to later on in a bit on the episode what that actually looks like in practical terms, because a lot of thought went into this, and yeah, this isn't because my business has suddenly become hugely successful. That's one thing I do want to point out. This is not, if I am looking back on this in a few years, the business is not hugely successful at all. It is profitable enough for me to live on in an extremely frugal manner, and that's it. It's not hugely successful. I'm not making huge amounts of money, not anywhere near that. I just want to make that very clear. So the decision is not based on the fact that the business is skyrocketing or anything like that. It's doing well, but certainly nothing to that extent. But I've worked out, given my current situation, living with my parents in their spare bedroom, my living expenses are practically are very small. And if I'm extremely careful for a year, I can realistically give myself a proper shot at this. So this is not a moment where I've seen huge uptake in the business, I've seen huge amounts of profitability or anything like that. that the decision has not been made based on that. It's just been made on, I've worked out I can live off the current profit the business is making, and my current living situation is such that it enables me to to ultimately give myself a real opportunity to see if this path can work. That's it, just giving it a shot. That's all it is. It's me working out I can currently live how I am now while trying to make this full time. And why I made the decision, I think is an important point. And I think the reason I finally made this decision is because mentally I've been split between two paths for a long time, and one of them is that traditional path of stability, security, employment, the traditional path that most people follow. And as I've said right off the bat of this documentary, not this documentary, but documenting this process, is there's nothing wrong with that at all. I certainly don't judge anyone who wants that, but it's certainly not for me, and I knew that at a very, very young age. And I mean, I have been quite lucky with my early career, to be honest. But fundamentally, that security, stability, is not something that's ever really appealed to me. And so I've had that traditional path, but deep down, I know for a fact that path will never provide the freedom I truly want. It will never provide that life that I envision for myself when I sit down. And this is also something that I'm going to be redoing, perhaps a topic for next time, or the next episode. But I'm going to be actually in real time redoing for the first time in a few years my new character, my current new character work, how I'm going to build out my new character on who I am becoming. And also I'm going to be redoing my vision board as well. I did it a few years ago, right when but at the time I think I've changed a lot in the last 3 years, and what I want now has changed dramatically. And not fundamentally a life of freedom is what I want, but I think it used to be, I'm getting sidetracked here, but that's something that I'm going to be doing perhaps next week. And anyway, and I felt stuck deciding between these two paths, the traditional path, and then there's the second path that's far less certain, far more risky, but potentially at the end of that path is a life that I actually envision for myself. And I've realised recently that I can't fully commit to both. I've been sort of mentally stagnant between this idea of freedom that I want and the business being the vehicle that can provide that freedom, and then the stability element of it as well. And because of that, I couldn't commit to either of them, either of the paths. And I think by now I'm in my mid 20s now, and I believe this is the right time. And hopefully again I'll look back on this decision in a few years to really give this everything for a few years and see what happens. Give this business, this life that I want, just give it everything for a few years and just see what happens. See if I can create an alternative reality for myself, which is what this whole process is all about. What the entire point of my life is, and then I'd say by extension the point of this channel is, because the only reason this channel exists is to document the process. That's all it is an archive. This is just going to be an archive for my process and my journey, and that's all this will be, which I want it to be. That's what I want. And the reality of the situation, as I alluded to a moment ago, is that the business is the vehicle that will take me to that life I actually want. It's the one that will give me the resources and the freedom I have craved for such a long time. And the traditional path won't. The job just wouldn't do that. So that's why I took the decision to leave that, because the life I actually want, my business is the vehicle to get me there. And that's abundantly clear now. So I'm going to give everything for a year in my business. I am going all in. I know that's a term that a lot of people use, but I don't want to turn this into some overly dramatized version of it. The reality is I'm going to pour everything into business for a year, hopefully longer. There are certain milestones and goals that I will be pre-setting over the next few weeks to determine whether or not we can continue beyond a year, or whether it is time to return to that hybrid model of employment and business and trying to make both work. But so hopefully more than a year. And if it works, maybe I'll have a shot at that life that I've wanted since I was young. And if it doesn't work, at least I can say I genuinely tried. I think that's the key. I genuinely gave it all I had. I genuinely tried, because there is a real possibility that this fails, and that's something I've grappled with over the last for a long time. I fully understand the fact that this could fail, and it might never go anywhere, and my reality might just be what it is now. But as I've said in the first video on this channel, I remember it vividly, and maybe I could timestamp it, or I think it's really important. It was off the bat. I don't. This is all just me talking and thinking out loud. But I think I said I would rather risk failing while trying to achieve that extraordinary life than just accept and live a normal life. So I'm comfortable with the fact that this could fail. I fully understand that, but maybe I am completely delusional. Who knows? Maybe I am just slightly delusional in that I believe all this is possible. But I do see it. It is in my imagination vividly. And if I can just keep running to it, and so that's why I'm making this decision. I will be able to run at full pace now for as long as I can, while trying to make this work. And I just refuse to settle for a life that I don't really want. And now's the time. I think I've hit my mid-20s now, and suddenly I feel a lot older. I suddenly feel, I know it's going to sound naive to some people, but for me, I'm starting to have a big feeling now of time's ticking. You need to, it's really now or never to try this, and you may as well try, because you are getting older now. And yeah, I think this is a good part, but it's not emotional or impulsive. This decision hasn't been made emotionally. There are real targets involved. There are financial targets, growth targets, business targets, and after a year, I will assess the situation honestly. Is this working? Yes, great. We can give ourselves another year. Hopefully, after a year, the business is really rolling, and I'll assess the reality of that situation very honestly. But if it's not working, maybe I return to the hybrid model, employment alongside the business, which is obviously I don't want. But right now, I've worked out I can survive for a while, provided I live very frugally and I reinvest the money back into the business. There won't be any sort of payments for me, and anything that really I spend will be money that is funneled back into the company. And I think that I've been asking myself, for a while now, why don't I just go all in now and seize this opportunity? And so that's exactly what I've done. And just to be clear, that doesn't mean I'm going to start acting. I think going all in on the business now doesn't mean I'm going to start acting like some flamboyant entrepreneur, huge entrepreneur that I've fake status, looking good or productive or successful online, or renting some ridiculous office. I mean, the company, it's just not. That's not the reality here. It's not about me pretending I'm some huge entrepreneur. I'm not. It's not about me, as I've said, doing all these I like to call them vanity metrics. So ridiculously expensive website, ridiculously expensive office, or you can name whatever you like, this sort of fake vanity metric, fake status that I have no interest in, and trying to look successful. It's not something I'm interested in. The reality of this step is not that. The reality of this is better product sourcing, better systems. How can we integrate AI into this company? How can we automate it? How can we make everything faster? How can we make everything more organized? How can we introduce new product types? How can we source better? How can we talk to more people and meet new suppliers of the products we have? It's a physical product business, so how can we market better? How can we get more people to view our products? How can we research better? What's our product selection like? What's better fulfillment? How can we, we're fulfilling very well right now, but can we fulfill 5% quicker? Can we, what's our production workflow like? How can we optimize that? How can we, as I said, how can we integrate AI to automate things, to enable us as a machine to work at a faster pace? And that's what that phase is about. This is what this phase is about, really turning this into a machine. That's the plan here. It's not about, it's not about this this sort of fake stuff. It's how can I properly grow this business? How can I learn? I know very little at the moment, and I want to learn, and I want to learn. And I'm very excited about this period where hopefully I will learn. And really right now, like, just to give you an idea of what I am doing right now, what I've been doing over the last few weeks is right now I'm phasing out version 1 of the business. So this is a year of trading, one whole year of trading. We're coming up to that now, and there's a lot of stock. Now this is, you could refer to it as dead stock, even though I don't really believe it is. Potentially it was marketed in the wrong way, potentially it was bought at the wrong time, potentially it was priced incorrectly, but all of this is sunk costs. We have a lot of inventory now that we need to liquidate into cash before we can relaunch version 2, before I don't know why I keep saying we, I can launch version 2 of the business. And that's what I want to do. I need to close out version 1, which I'll be doing over the next month, hopefully. Hopefully I can get this done over the next month. There's a lot of stock to clear, a lot of, and by the way, all of this stock, all of these, they're all mistakes. They're all mistakes I've made over the last year. They're all errors that I now need to get rid of. So this is another example of how, a year ago I wasn't even considering starting this channel, but I've made continuous mistakes from the very start, and I continue to do that. And so practically there are changes happening right now where I've already started phasing out version 1 of the business, and before I can rebuild this business properly, I need to liquidate everything I have into cash. A lot of the stock at this point is effectively sunk cost. That money I spent 6 to 12 months ago, that it would be better to, this is obviously not, it's been successful overall, but these are products that were bought clearly in error, and lessons that I can take from that. So the next phase really is inventory clear up, is clearing up the remains, if you like, of the remnants of this first version of the business, and before we can go into version 2. And it's all about freeing up. I'm running this business from a spare bedroom at the moment, so space is very limited. So it's all not just mental clarity there, it's physical space that is needed, and turning that stock into usable capital for the company. And so that's what I'm going to be doing over the next month, liquidating stock, closing out phase 1 of the business. I got an idea of what I'm going to do after that, after I've closed out phase 1. And once that process is complete, version 2, there will be a relaunch of the company, which I'm very excited about. And that company will be faster, it will be more systemized, more refined, and built on the lessons learned from phase 1 of the business. And I think that's really important, learning those lessons. So I'm really excited about the future, really excited about closing out phase 1 of this business and committing to this path. So that's what the next month is about. I've made that decision now. It's going to be quite a repetitive process, liquidating all stock, liquidating everything we have, and closing out phase 1 of the business, which has been successful. Version 1 of the business, and now I've started, as I alluded to in the first video, over the last few years I've tried to start probably 5 companies, and 4 of them have failed miserably. I've actually lost money, not just failed. I started the company with money and then didn't get it back. Whereas this particular business that I have now, it's the only one that worked. I've failed time and time again, and this one's the only one that worked, and that's why I want to run with it. That's why I truly believe that this one is it, that this will be the one, and we've got to go with it. I've got to go with it. And I think I've learned a lot. And listen, that's probably going off on a tangent. As I said, this is just me thinking out loud. But I think a lot of the lessons I've learned might actually be quite useful at this early stage to sort of maybe do a video on that. I'm not sure, but I mean, really, it's just about phasing out version 1, bringing in phase 2, and that's what it is. And nothing changes with this channel in regards to what happens now. I'll continue documenting everything exactly as before. I'm still at the very beginning. There's so much to come. I truly believe that. But this just becomes the next phase of the process now, and there's going to be a lot more pressure, a lot more responsibility with this decision. There is a lot more uncertainty, certainly, but much more opportunity. And as my life changes, hopefully for better, but it may go wrong, I'm fully aware of that, and I'm happy with that risk. I'm just going to keep, I'll keep documenting it honestly, because that's what this has always been about, just sitting down in front of a camera and explaining what's happened, or explaining the phase I'm at. And hopefully I look back at this decision as a great decision. And it's not me pretending that I have all the answers or that everything is perfect. As I've said many times, everything is not perfect. I'm not making this decision because the business is hugely profitable. I'm making this decision because I believe I can turn it into something that is. And right now, I can live extremely frugally until I can make it. If I'm really careful, I probably can make it through the next the next year. Now that's what this decision is not off the back of huge profits. It's off the back of me realizing that if I live very carefully, I can direct all attention to the business, which is what, yeah, just documenting this real process from a very, from a starting point, and a very ordinary starting point at that, towards hopefully building something extraordinary. And I believe that it can become that. And so just to close off, I mean, what this practically also means over the next weeks and the coming weeks, what I'll be doing from a practical standpoint is obviously closing out version 1 of the business, but also formalizing everything properly now. My calendar, my structure, what this is all going to look like now that I am all in on the business. There is no employment, there is no job, so I can devote all my time. And it's about how I can organize that time. I use Trello as a workflow software. I think it's very good. I've used it for a long time, and I sync that into Google Calendar as well, and that works well. And really, it's about the targets, the structure, the calendar, what my day is going to look like. Now that there's a lot more time in how I manage that time, so I need to create all of that and make sure that I'm not wasting time at all. So, but also, as I said, I've had finality here of making sure that, how do I measure this at the end of the 12 months? Has this succeeded? Has this failed? And I will do that here. I will do that. I will share that measurement. But maybe that's something I'll speak more next week's episode. I'll consider that over the. I film this on the same day I post, so this is, I literally just film it, sit in front of the camera, have a few brief notes of topics I want to discuss, and then I just film it. So this is going out straight after it's been filmed. So during the early part of next week, I'll consider what I want next week's video to be based on, and that's something I'll consider in next week's episode. But for now, this is simply the beginning of the next phase of the business, a very exciting phase, one that hopefully is the making and the foundations of the company, hopefully, and then certainly something that I look back on in a few years and think, what a great decision. So there's no emotional motivational finale here, no dramatic speech, because really what I want to capture with this is there has to be an element of realness to it, or not just an element of realness, it has to be completely real in order so that I can look back and say, well, that was what it was really like. That's what the process was really like. There was no over dramatization or anything ridiculous like that. Just a real decision at the beginning of a very, very, very long process, and we'll see where it leads. So that is it for this video. Hopefully this turns into be the right decision, but that is the decision, that I've quit my job and I'm going all in on the business. So thank you very much for watching. As I said, I will post next week, and I'll have a think about the topic I want to discover. I mean, it's all very much on the fly usually. And yeah, thanks very much for watching.